convoluted mess over the many years of Overwatch. Ever since the release of Overwatch,
Patrick,
the
guess
Omnic
what
we
game
all
I'm
know and love
opening?
has been
what?
vital to receive some of the most changes compared to any of the other characters, even similar to the likes of Symmetra is one of the original heroes released in Overwatch back in 2016. She was known for her unique abilities that can manipulate light and bend reality to her will. But over the years, Symmetra has undergone significant changes and reworks that have transformed her playstyle and made her a more well-rounded hero. When Symmetra was first released, her kit was primarily focused on supporting, as back then in 2016, Symmetra was actually originally a support character. Her entire kit was completely different from what we see today. One of Symmetra's main abilities that was primarily focused for her was her ability to grant shields to her teammates. When Symmetra used this ability, she would give a 25 HP shield to each one of her teammates until they died. As well, during the alpha, Symmetra originally had 3 turrets like she does today, but later on in the beta they decided to up that number from 3 to 6. As well, Symmetra's primary and secondary fire were also very different from what we know today. Her primary fire was like a lock-on beam that would gradually ramp up in damage and do more damage over time once it locked onto her target. So she was super dangerous up close and she really didn't require that much aim. Symmetra's secondary fire was very different. Similarly to how it works now, she would charge it up and shoot an orb of light, but it was a lot slower when it moved, and plus it was able to pass through shields. And then lastly, her ultimate, which was actually her teleporter at the time. Symmetra can place her teleporter anywhere on the map, and then from one end it would spawn into the spawn room and then it would go to where she placed it. Unlike how her TP is now, her teleporter had up to 6 charges, 1 for each of her team, and then once it was out of charges, the teleporter would destroy itself.
Enemy turret ahead!
Teleporter online. We move.
For a while, this was Symmetra's base kit, but it wouldn't be long for her to receive her first major rework, which was about 6 months after the game released. 6 months later, Symmetra will receive an ultimate rework in the form of Shield Generator. Basically, how this Shield Generator worked, it was kind of like her TP. She was able to place it anywhere and it would build itself up and start working. So, her shield generator, once activated, would grant in a certain radius her team 75 plus shield. That's basically all it did. It would give your entire team shield, and it would give them about 75 more HP, and it regenerated. The generator was pretty tanky. It came at a base HP of 50 health and 350 shield, so it was a little bit tanky because of the extra shield that I got. As well, for a teleporter, it was still her ultimate, and which was a fun thing was Symmetra was like the first character to have 2 different ultimates. She had the shield generator and the teleporter. And another important thing to note is they got rid of Symmetra's ability to grant her teammates shield now because they put that on the shield generator. So now she had a new ability. This new ability was named the Photon Barrier, and it was just another shield that they added and gave to Symmetra. So basically how it worked was Symmetra would cast the ability and it was an oval based shield, and the shield would continuously move forward non-stop, absorbing damage. It had a base HP of 1000 and it would move about 5.5 meters a second. So if you want to think about it, it was like a very early concept for Sigma's shield. And besides that, there was probably a few more balance changes where they buffed Symmetra's like primary fire damage, and her secondary fire they made it faster, but it could no longer go through shields. Now the reason for this first rework that they did to Symmetra was addressed in this developer comment. We wanted to address 2 main issues with Symmetra. First, on the whole, we felt that she didn't feel active enough. Second, due to the nature of her teleporter, she felt weak in certain situations on different maps and game modes. To address the first point, we replaced her more passive Photon Shield ability with a much more active ability, Photon Barrier. Now Symmetra can help lead the charge on offense and help shut down a big push on defense by actively blocking damage for your team. For the second point, we noticed players would often switch off Symmetra once they found themselves in a situation where her teleporter wasn't as useful. For example, when playing her on defense on an assault map, players would often use her to defend the first capture point, then quickly switched to another hero if that point fell. To help her feel more useful in the situations, we've given her an alternative to her teleporter, the shield generator. So this change would stick around for a very long time after this first rework. Blizzard thought they're gonna let it settle and they're gonna see how this first rework went with Symmetra. Now with these changes in mind, it was a step in the right direction for Symmetra. But the thing is, was it enough for her? Mind you, Symmetra was still classed as a support character during this time. Was it worth taking a Symmetra over having another healer or having another DPS to do more damage? At certain points, yes, it was more important to have a Symmetra, especially on maps like Assault maps where you really had to get your team back onto the point as soon as you can. So that's where her teleporter came in handy, or for those cheese strats where you would have a Torbjorn with armor packs and you have a Symmetra shield generator to give your team a huge health boost. And I'm talking huge, like a Zen can have like 350 HP with those two combined. So often during this time, you would be paired with a Symmetra and Torb, and it would be called like a cheese comp because they would have like a Bastion, they would be bunkered down holding an assault map like Hanamura or like Watchpoint Gibraltar, and they would just sit there with the shield generator being absolutely tanky and regenerating that at the same time. So not a lot of people found the new comp pretty fun because at least with Symmetra and Torbjorn, it was a pretty cheesy comp overall and no one really found it enjoyable. And either way, Symmetra still wasn't really worth picking over the support or even other DPS sometimes. So this is what will culminate to later on, 2 years later, to Symmetra's second rework. So in this second rework, which happened on June 26, 2018, is where we would see more of the modern Symmetra come in. This is where she was moved from the support category over to the DPS category now. Her primary fire no longer locks onto targets, its range got increased a little bit more to 10 meters now, and now it has the same damage ramping effect but not with the auto lock on. And also another neat thing was every time Symmetra's beam were to hit a barrier, it would regenerate ammo permanently. So they sort of made her like an anti-barrier, anti-shield kind of character. Now they also changed her secondary fire. They made the speed a lot more faster than what it used to be, and now they added an impact and explosive damage instead of it just going through the target. With her turrets, they changed how the system worked basically, because back then it was like a placement thing. You would have to put it down like sort of like her TP was on like a wall or a floor, and then that's when she could activate it. But now instead it's kind of like how the projectile how it works nowadays. They also changed how many turrets Symmetra can have at once, going from 6 to 3. But in replacement of that, they amped the damage of the turrets by like a lot more, and also the slowing effect of the turret. And then here is a big change with Symmetra. Instead of her teleporter being her ultimate, it's now her standard ability. The teleporter can be placed anywhere from up to 25 meters away, and then the entrance will be built right in front of Symmetra from where she put it originally. Another fun thing that they added or interaction with her teleporter was that it's able to carry some abilities such as like Junkrat Riptire, her turrets, or even Diva Bomb. Last but not least is Symmetra's ultimate change for the final time, which we see as the Photon Barrier, the giant wall that she puts up now. So now, instead of her teleporter being her ultimate, it's now her standard ability. Instead of her putting up a shield as a standard ability, it's now an ultimate, and the wall is across the entirety of the map. So this is how we got here with modern Symmetra. There was a lot of different changes that occurred over the years in order for Blizzard to finally find out what they want to do with Symmetra. It took them over the course of 3 years to finally figure it out, and a whole role change entirely from support to DPS. The thing is though, even with the second rework, Symmetra was still lacking as far as being a DPS. Now there was a lot of issues going on with her over picking Symmetra over some of the better DPS at the time. So now, even though the second rework was out for Symmetra, it still wasn't enough for the character to really excel. So instead of Blizzard reworking her again, they just decided to try buffing her up instead, such as making her primary fires do much more damage and ramp up quicker, and as well as buffing up her teleporter, making it so that it lasts infinitely now instead of getting destroyed after about 20 seconds. But that really concludes much of the changes for Overwatch 1 when it comes to Symmetra. After the second rework, there were some numerous buffs, but after that, there really wasn't any substantial changes to her. Until we get to Overwatch 2, some of Symmetra's base kit will be tweaked a little bit to make her turrets travel faster and have less movement speed reduction, but also make her teleporter plays a lot better and making her primary secondary fire a lot stronger, or weaker in a sense with some of the changes that they would make to sort of offset some of the damage balance, but she still puts out a lot of raw power. But as far as when it comes to Overwatch 2, there hasn't been much changes with Symmetra. Symmetra has pretty much stayed the same ever since her second rework, and none of her abilities has changed besides maybe some buffs and nerfs to her base kit. Until now, Symmetra's, I would say, in a pretty decent spot. She's not a really bad character, but she certainly is a niche character on some points in some maps. But after that, that's really all I have for today's history of. This was about Symmetra. It was a great video to look back on the history of Overwatch 1 And if you guys have any comments down below of which character you want to see next, feel free to comment down below and let me know. I really appreciate the feedback that you guys gave on the last one. So thank you so much. Have a great day.